Hello, my name is Jeff Steinberg. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2008, and this is the LaRouche Political Action Committee weekly update. For those of you who have been monitoring the developments around the Olympic torch in London and again yesterday in Paris, where Tibetan demonstrators and other anti-Chinese activists attempted to disrupt the Olympic torch run, you get an idea in snapshot form of the fact that we're living through some very, very unusual and very dangerous times. As Lyndon LaRouche has been repeatedly warning in recent weeks, in response to the worst financial collapse perhaps in history, certainly the worst financial collapse in modern times, the forces aligned with the British Empire, the City of London, financial oligarchy, allies and assets and dupes throughout Europe, and particularly here in the United States, are in a drive to provoke a third world war centered around Eurasia, particularly targeting the major Asian powers, namely China, Russia, and India. I've already indicated at least one aspect of the provocations currently being carried out against China. We had the activation of riots in Lhasa, the capital city of Tibet, back at the beginning of March, and this was an escalation point in an anti-China campaign that's been going on for well over a year, and has up until this point been focused on repeated attempts on the part of the British and on the part of the Cheney neocon apparatus in the Bush administration to provoke a cross-straits crisis targeting China and blowing up the situation between China and Taiwan. That effort suffered a substantial setback in the recent Taiwanese elections, but nevertheless, the commitment to provoke a major crisis with China continues unabated. So we now have the Tibet flank. China is also a major target of the destabilization that's been going on for the past several years in Darfur, in that part of the Sudan, where China is targeted because of its investments and offers to build infrastructure in Africa in return for access to petroleum and other strategic raw materials of the African continent. This is considered to be a real no-no by the oligarchs in London and their allies in Paris and other European capitals, who have historically viewed Africa as their private looting ground where they carry out population genocide and then steal the raw material wealth of the African continent. We are very, very close to World War III. The Russians saw the push by President Bush at the NATO summit to have NATO membership extended to Georgia and the Ukraine, two countries bordering on Russia, as an existential threat, as a virtual declaration of war against Russia. The Chinese are looking at the destabilization being carried out now ostensibly around the Tibet situation as a targeted provocation coming out of the United States against China. They see President Bush's hosting of the Dalai Lama at the White House several months back as a provocation. They see Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi's visit to India, where she bowed at the feet of the Dalai Lama, as a provocation. We are very, very close to World War III.
Now, and in China, the full horror of Monday's earthquake is starting to unfold. As rescuers push to the heart of the disaster, they're finding entire towns virtually obliterated. According to one report, the death toll is now well over 20,000 and rising by the hour.
The blueprint for HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program.
What does HAARP do? HAARP is a large antenna where we beam radio frequency energy up into the upper atmosphere, and we create on a small scale what the sun normally does.
The assignment came that the Navy and the Air Force were to manage the program.
Applications discussed in the patents included destroying missiles. Communications control and disruption were included. There were some other ideas both to possibly modify weather and finally to lift a portion of the upper atmosphere further out into space where hopefully it would be able to deflect missile trajectories.
In 1983, I did radio tomography with 30 watts, looking for oil in the ground. I found 26 oil wells over a 9-state area, and 100% of the time was accurate with just 30 watts of power beaming straight into solid rock. HAARP uses 1 billion watts beamed straight into the ionosphere for experiments. Picture these strings on the piano as layers of the earth. Each one has its own frequency. What we used to do is beam radio waves into the ground, and it would vibrate any strings that were present in the ground. We might get a sound back like, and we'd say, that's natural gas. We might get a sound back like, and we say that's crude oil. We were able to identify each frequency. We accomplished this with just 30 watts of radio power. If you do this with 2 billion watts, the vibrations are so violent that the entire piano would shake. In fact, the whole house would shake. In fact, the vibrations could be so severe underground that could even cause an earthquake.
HAARP can create some of the effects that the sun creates that are similar to the aurora borealis.
HAARP can paint designs in the sky, if you will. You know, it can take the beam and move it in any pattern that the scientist who's doing an experiment might want to do.
设备思想的人能要求吧？
这跟这个方向问题，跟其他方向差不多。
有光线的折射嘛，太阳折射就是用在折射的太阳光嘛，应该就是。
Quake struck China. Roll it. Oh my. That's from an airport. That tape comes from a spot near the epicenter of that 7.9 magnitude quake.
China correspondent Stephen McDonnell is in the disaster zone.
At a school where hundreds are feared dead, troops rush bodies away from the scene. Then a rare moment of triumph as a student is found alive. But for most, there's only loss and pain. This woman fainting with grief. At another school, there was more grief as rescue workers fought to free the trapped and injured. At this building, they used microphones to pick up voices and video cameras to find the victims. Eventually, a survivor was freed, but it was a painful escape. China's deputy leader, Premier Wen Jiabao, has been comforting the victims. He told this girl, "Don't cry, the government will take good care of you." As well as strong aftershocks, rain has increased the dangers of the rescue effort,